welcome to Cooking with Nana Sue. Today we're going to be making Beirox. Beirox is a very simple meal in itself. It is a German hamburger. It's been called a German hamburger before. This recipe was taught to my mom from her mother-in-law, Goldie Veda Krehbiel Fechner, who learned it from her mother-in-law. So it's just kind of passed down. What you need is cabbage, onion, ground beef. For this amount of Beirox that I'm making, I'm going to do 30. So you see I have rising in an oven that has just a light on. I'm thawing out frozen rolls. Now, my grandma, Veda, might have taken offense to this. We don't know, because they didn't have Rhodes frozen rolls back in the olden days. So my mom tweaked the recipe and said, hey, let's make this easier and let's use frozen rolls. So she would set them out. What I do is I spray this pan and then I lay out 30 frozen rolls and I spray them again with a no stick spray. Makes it easier. So that's the base. We're going to fry up 2 pounds of hamburger meat and an entire cabbage. We're going to chop it up in the food processor along with chopping up an white onion. And then we're going to cook the meat and the vegetables in this big pot. And as the meat cooks, you just throw it in all together raw. As the meat cooks, it's going to steam and soften up the cabbage and the onion. So I'm going to give you a little backstory. Since my grandma, Veda Goldie Fechner, would make it from scratch, there's a lot of family, extended family, that look down upon using frozen Rhodes rolls. And so they say, no, you cannot make Beirox unless you're using real homemade dough. So let's fast forward to a few weeks ago. My son Jordan, who just turned 30, he's a father of 2 young children. He's been making Beirox since he was a Boy Scout in high school. He would cook them in a Dutch oven over a fire. So he was very ingenious back then. But he wanted to make Beirox and found that his frozen rolls weren't doing what they needed to do. And so they were too old. He made his own bread dough. And he says they are fabulous. So, you know, if you have the time, make your own bread dough. If you don't, use frozen Rhodes. So we'll come back and in just a minute when everything's chopped and ready to put in the Rhodes rolls. As you have, we have our cabbage shredded. I use a food processor, which is wonderful. Underneath here is the hamburger and the onions that were chopped in the food processor first, and they've been starting to cook already. I've added a little bit of salt and pepper. You just want to keep adding salt and pepper throughout this cooking process. And it's really to taste. That's what you do, is you do it to taste, but you can't taste it yet because it's raw. So I am going to also post a recipe for my Aunt Wanda's bread dough that I have if you wanted to use that. I have yet to make Beirox with it yet because I've always been too busy, I felt like, to make the homemade bread. So that's one of my goals for this summer. Okay, our cabbage, hamburger, and onion mixture has been cooking for about 20 minutes. We are now ready to assemble. My Rhodes rolls are thawed. I put them in here a little after 9:30. They're soft. They haven't risen a bunch, but they don't need to. They just need to be pliable where you can flatten them out and stretch them a bit and put a spoonful of the meat mixture into them. I'm going to use these pans to cook them in. We're going to spray them again with the no stick spray. Okay, we're ready to start assembling the little rolls. I'm going to spray down each pan with our can of spray. Okay, now looky here what we have. They are ready to go. And this has just been since about 9:30, so a couple of hours. You take one. I've washed my hands already. And you just start, you want to be careful not to make this middle part super thin. So you want to concentrate on bringing it out from the edges. This takes practice. My first one that I made was horrid. It was horrid. So you just get to practicing, but it's not that hard. And so you want it to be about this little bit bigger than the palm of your hand. And now you're going to kind of make a little indentation. So here again, you can see how thin it is in the middle, but I don't want it any thinner than that because it will tear. And those, they're still good to eat, but they just don't look very pretty. So now we're going to take this mixture that we've cooked, about 20 minutes took to cook. The cabbage is cooked, the onions are cooked, the hamburger's cooked. You're going to just put about 1.5 spoons. That's a tablespoon. Now you're going to just pinch up the edges. Just pinch them up, keeping the meat inside. Pinch them, pinch them. See, now it's like a little pouch. And you're going to put that pinch side down. And we're going to just tap it like that so it flattens it a little bit. We're going to do 3 rows of 5 and make 15. So let's do one more for the camera. Here, you grab one and you just start pulling it apart. Pulling it, being careful to just get it all one thickness. I guess a person could use a rolling pin. But anyway, there you go. Scoop up your 1 to 1.5, and maybe that might have even been 2. Pinch it up and start your spray. So I forgot to tell you earlier, but when you get towards the bottom of your meat mixture in your pot, it's going to be real juicy, depending on what kind of beef you use, but you're always going to have some moisture from the cabbage and the onions. So what I like to do is I like to put it in a strainer, and then as you can see, it lets it strain to the bottom, and then you can have a drier mixture to put in your rolls. If you don't, what happens is it oozes out, and it just makes for soggy bottoms on your rolls and things like that. So I just found it's best to just strain your meat mixture. That's a trick I added myself as I became an adult. Okay, now we've got that first pan done, and we're ready to do a second pan. My second pan is done. As I don't know if you can tell, but this one, they're a little bit smaller. I was running out of the meat mixture, which if you do run out of them, you can just put your leftover rolls on the pan and cook them as a roll. But if you kind of eyeball it, the more you do it, the more you can kind of eyeball what you've got, and you can start making them a little bit smaller. I think you can see it differently from this one. This one had 2 full spoons, and then I just started doing 1 and was able to get all of the dough filled. So we have 30 Beirox. If you have small children, you want to make some smaller ones anyway, so it all works out. Okay, these have been cooking for almost 20 minutes, and they are done. The alarm will go off here in a minute, but I started smelling them, so I checked them, and I want them out now. I'm going to put the other pan in. I didn't tell you, every oven cooks differently, so start out at 350. But if your oven is like mine, you have to cook it on 375 for 15 to 20 minutes, just depending on your oven. Now I'm going to put butter on top of these, and they will be ready to eat.